I love action adventure games, and in this video, I'm going to be going over my top 25 best action adventure games of all time. But we do have a few ground rules to go over because this list would kind of suck if I didn't do some of the stuff that we're going to talk about here. So I have limited it to 1 to 2 games per franchise, just so I can't put like 5 Zelda games or every single Castlevania game that I love on here. I have also included stealth games, as many of them can be played in a run and gun action adventure style. Also, keep in mind, pure action RPG adventure games have been kept off of this list, and we're going with games that might have some light RPG elements, but are generally seen as non-RPGs by a lot. Now, one final note, this is simply my list for the best action adventure games of all time and is absolutely not an objective best or anything like that. So please let me know what your favorite action adventure games of all time are in the comment section below. Okay, with all that out of the way, let's get right into the top 25 best action adventure games of all time. Starting out at number 25, we've got the original Xbox, Ninja Gaiden Black. This game was so cool back in the day, early 2000s. I loved it. They took the Ninja Gaiden game that was already good, the reboot of the franchise that made it even better, fixing some of the camera stuff, still had some issues there, but adding a bunch of quality of life features and updates to make the game even better. So Ninja Gaiden Black did all of the stuff that you love to see in the mid-2000 action adventure games, action games. It was awesome. It was kind of like a revolution to see Ryu Hayabusa look so good on the Xbox hardware, made specifically for that system. The graphics were awesome, the frame rate was really good, the story was decent, passable for an action game, wasn't anything crazy, but the biggest thing with this game was the difficulty and the action, how it marred together Tomonobu Itagaki and what he was able to do. It was like Dark Souls before Dark Souls overall. This was a punishing game where you really had to use different weapons, you had to really study the attack patterns, and you could not just button mash or you're gonna get bopped with the boss battles, or even just regular enemies can just slash you up. So Ninja Gaiden Black was the full package back in the day on the OG Xbox, and that's why it makes the number 25 on my list. Coming in at number 24, Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell Chaos Theory. I love the old school Splinter Cell series, and it's a shame that it's been on hiatus for so long, but they're coming back with the remake. But you can go back and play Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell Chaos Theory right now and be impressed. The OG Xbox Chaos Theory looks so good. It is an awesome game. It takes obviously the stealth genre and it puts it together with more, I would say, contraptions and devices that seem so logical for a CIA agent, infiltration type of thing. I love what they were able to do with the lighting and the shadows. Still very impressive at this point and shows what the Xbox could do back in the day. So I like that as well. I thought that the story was really well told and done great. The level design was super cool. It really kind of marred together. Like, if you want to play stealth, obviously stealth is the way to get it done, but you can go through and take people out as well. You can take them out, hide their bodies, do all stuff, or even just shoot and kill them overall in a lot of missions. So Splinter Cell gave you options. It gave you different tools to take care of enemies. It gave you everything that you essentially needed to do, just be this cool hybrid of an American style game and Metal Gear Solid kind of put together. So Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell Chaos Theory, still one of the greatest stealth games of all time, but still has so many tools to be a great action adventure title too in the same vein. So Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell Chaos Theory makes the number 24 on my list. Coming in at number 23, Gravity Rush 2. This was one of my favorite games on the PlayStation 4. Rest in peace to Japan Studios for this one, but this game still lives on. Gravity Rush 2 can be played on your PlayStation 5 with no super enhancements or updates, but the game doesn't really need it. It looks good and it runs good for the most part on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. It would be great if we actually got something updated, but this game is more than playable. The combat, the graphics, the style, the story, Everything in here is super high quality. You can tell that the developers really took their time to flesh out the individual mechanics of how Cat moves through the sky and how she maneuvers, and the combat in the game with your partner. It's just really well done, and there's a lot of little things that also enhance the experience. I felt that it was a big step above what we saw with Gravity Rush 1 from a overall presentation, combat fluidity, controls. Everything is there. Now, I know it's not perfect. Trust me, there are other games that maybe could have made this list, but to me, the overall style of Gravity Rush really supersedes so many different things that other games do, and it's just good enough in all of the other areas in terms of a unique atmosphere and a unique style of game to make it on my list. Coming in at number 22, Okami, one of the best action adventure games if you're looking at it from a review purposes wise. This was a game that added so much style and flavor back on the PlayStation 2, but subsequently, if you look at the releases, the HD versions of the game, they play so well for the most part, and they look awesome too. But the combat is really where Okami to me stands out, because it's really different from other adventure games. How you fight enemies with the brush and kind of putting together different movements and then attacking the enemies, and then the unique art style as well just looked beautiful, even on the PlayStation 2, the Wii, the PS3, the Switch. No matter what system you play it on, it just looks incredible. So Okami to me earns every bit of praise that it got back in the day when it released, and even with the modern releases as well. Beautiful game, sleek controls, great innovation within the overall storytelling, combat, art style, all put together. Okami makes the number 22 on the list. Coming in at number 21, Devil May Cry 5 Special Edition. Now, I wasn't the biggest on the original Devil May Cry 5, but just like Ninja Gaiden Black, the Special Edition of Devil May Cry 5 is absolutely incredible. I was able to play it a bit ago, and I felt that they did a number of enhancements and improvements to the overall package of the game. I played this one on the PlayStation 5, and the frame rate was just, woo, it was super high. It was really good. It created really silky smooth combos and finishers, and you're able to upgrade multiple characters in the game. It seems like the developers are like, okay, we're gonna take everything that people know and love about Devil May Cry and make it so much better. I thought that the story was well done. I think that the replay value is all there. Devil May Cry 5 Special Edition doesn't have many flaws and has so many advantages and so many good things about it. The music is awesome too, especially if you're into like the hardcore rock and everything. The stylish meter is great. The weapons in there are great. And I think that the overall tone and style, graphics, everything is just very well done. Devil May Cry 5 Special Edition, one of the best pure action games, if we're just going off of that, of all time, and absolutely good enough to make it at number 21 on my list. Just wanted to say thank you so much for watching, and please hit that like button if you're enjoying the content, and subscribe to the channel if you are not already subscribed for the latest all-time best videos and more. Please click that notification bell as well to get my videos first. All right, let's get right back into it. Coming in at number 20, Hollow Knight. Now, once again, Metroidvania style of game, 2D action adventure type of thing, but Hollow Knight's really good. I had to put it on here. Hollow Knight blew me away when I played it back in 2018 on the Nintendo Switch, and it's still just as good. You can go pick it up and play it, and I think that what gives Hollow Knight the edge over a lot of games out there is the pinpoint accurate controls. Anytime that you make a mistake or there's a problem, really it's on you with Hollow Knight. The graphics are clean enough to where the hit detection feels very good as well. There is some BS here and there, but overall you're going to be slashing and hitting people, and you're going to know exactly how far to reach to get the hit. You're going to know exactly by the pixel, when you get good at the game, where you need to be to dodge attacks, and the movement in the game is just awesome. It's the schmovement in this game that can be really cool, plus all the content as well. This is a beefy game for an independent title. It is a beefy game that has a lot of extra content added right in there for free for most people who buy the game. Don't ask me about Silk Song, guys. We're just talking about Hollow Knight here. So Hollow Knight makes it in at number 20 on my list. Coming in at number 19, Hades. This is a game that I would have never thought when it comes to rogue games would ever be in a top list for me, unless we were specifically talking about rogue games, and that list would be very small because I'm not a rogue guy. But Hades is one of the exceptions to the rule for me because it is incredible. The art style is fantastic. The dialogue and the voice acting is second to none for this type of indie game. And the gameplay is fast, frenetic, and super fun. And that's what's important about Hades. To me, it has some of the best and most fun gameplay. There's not a ton of different weapons, but there's a lot of modifiers to those weapons to do different things, and a lot of modifiers to magic systems and all of that. So each run, you get a little bit better and better with permanent stat buffs and upgrades, and you get a little bit better and better understanding attack patterns and the bosses. And then when you finally beat the game, or at least the first part of the thing, like you actually win, you're like, wow, that was a sense of release. And they keep you wanting to go because of the story in the game and what happens when you beat each run. So for me, Hades, absolutely one of the best action, adventure, rogue, whatever type of games you want to call it. I'm never doing a rogue list of all time, guys, so we're gonna have to put it here at action adventure. I'm sorry. So Hades makes it number 19 on my list. Coming in at number 18, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. Yes, this game is that good. I love it so much. Silky smooth controls, great gameplay, and yeah, Metroidvania 2D, I get that, but it's honestly so good with its upgrades, with its story, with its voice acting, graphics. It looks and plays awesome. Every time that I made a mistake or there was something that went wrong, it was generally my fault. And the hook was you keep on going back to level up and upgrade and get new abilities and get new time stuff. It was the Prince of Persia in terms of the look, aesthetics, and all of that, but with the Metroid Dread or with the Castlevania style of gameplay, and was phenomenal for that. And I think it actually did a number of things better than those two franchises overall. And one thing that I think that should absolutely be a part of how good the game is the fact that you can play it on any system and it runs good on everything. Nintendo Switch, 1080p 60 for the most part, and you have cross save between all of them. So that creates functionality and makes just a better game overall. So I can play the Nintendo Switch version on the go or the Steam Deck version on the go, then come back and play it on my PlayStation 5 or my Xbox or anywhere else that the game is available. So that is an incredible feature and something that to me makes the game even better. So Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown comes in at number 18 on my list. Next up at number 17, Uncharted 2. Probably shocking to some of you guys as I don't talk about Uncharted much. I felt that the gameplay was perfection for the third-person action adventure cover shooter. They did a great cover system, great controls, very clean gameplay, and a very in-depth and good story overall. Voice acting was top-notch, obviously. Graphics are top-notch, first-party Sony PS3 game at the height of the PS3's powers overall. And I feel that the multiplayer is really where you got a lot of the replay value, because the single player, you can play it again. There's a harder difficulty. There's trophies, I think, maybe in there. I don't know. They do have a bunch of stuff in their collectibles and all that, but there's no upgrades. There's no upgrades, so it's kind of like, on that one, unless you're doing the harder difficulty. But the multiplayer is where you really found a lot of the challenge and upgrades and different things to keep the experience going with that awesome cover system, combat, climbing, and all of that. So for me, Uncharted 2, I probably spent almost 100 hours in this game if you include the multiplayer as well. So it absolutely had to be in my top 25, coming in at number 17. Next up at number 16 is Castlevania Symphony of the Night, one of the greatest games of all time, hands down, and the birth of the Metroidvania action adventure style of games, taking what Castlevania does, an action RPG, Metroid, the adventure, and the different type of going throughout the castle or labyrinth and having the maps and all that stuff. You guys know how it is. And to me, Castlevania Symphony of the Night is just so awesome. I love the main character. Alucard is the GOAT. He's my favorite Castlevania character of all time, and I don't think it's that close, although I do love the DS games. Those games are awesome. I can't put a bunch of them on here or I'd have more. I do love those. I do love Rondo of Blood as well. So Castlevania is awesome, but Symphony of the Night to me is the catalyst. It's the GOAT. It's one of the best. And it had so many cool things in here with the leveling up system, with the graphics and how it looked back on the PS1, with the movement in the game, with the amount of demons that you can slay and monsters, with the different endings as well, the replay value. Symphony of the Night was just the full package, and the music was awesome as well. You cannot forget the music. Music's very important, especially if you're going to be playing a game where you're going throughout a big castle and going through the same areas lots of times. You got to have snappy, good music that you want to listen to. Great gameplay. Castlevania Symphony of the Night checks all of the boxes, so it makes it in at number 16 on my list. Coming in at number 15, Viewtiful Joe, one of the GOATs of the GameCube out there, which I talked about in a video recently. And I love Viewtiful Joe because it combined everything that you would love about the old school beat 'em ups, the Double Dragon games, or what you would see with Final Fight and stuff that you played back in the day, but made it modern. Added in all of the 2000s twist, the bullet time, the speeding up time, the different type of upgrades and power-ups, the replay value. To me, it's one of the best, if not the best, beat 'em up, like 2D side-scrolling action adventure beat 'em up type of game, which once again, I know it's weird. Some people might not have this as an action adventure game, but I have to put it in somewhere because Viewtiful Joe is awesome. So for me, Viewtiful Joe just does so many great things. I think the story was a bit corny, but still very cool. And I think that the graphics are just awesome. They're so silky smooth. Capcom, Platinum Games, or at least it was called Clover Studios back then, they really did a stand-up job with this game. And I implore all of you guys to go out there and play Viewtiful Joe and see what I'm talking about. And it would be great if Capcom could actually release a Viewtiful Joe HD collection with Viewtiful Joe 1 and 2, and you guys can see what I'm talking about for those who haven't played it, because it really is one of the GOATs when you play. I mean, you can go back and play on the GameCube, and it was 60 frames. It looked good, ran good, played good. Everything was awesome in the game. The boss battles were hype, too. So Viewtiful Joe makes it number 15 on my list. Coming in at number 14, Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty. And honestly, this game could be a lot higher. But when you're talking about best action adventure games of all time, man, you're getting into rare territory here. But this game was so trippy and so weird and so calculated by Kojima and Konami at the time. I don't even know. It still trips me out to this day, the ending and what they did in that game. But the gameplay, one of the biggest fake outs of all time that pissed people off back then with Snake and then pulling the okey doke to Raiden. But I actually ended up really liking Raiden. And I thought that the gameplay was awesome as well. It was very fun. Raiden has a sword at some point too, so that's cool. He also does some other things which we won't talk about. Yippee! I don't find it that cool, but it's in the game. And I do feel that overall, this game just has so many great stealth elements, so many cool action elements as well when you're fighting a Metal Gear and things. So, I mean, to me, it can really slot it into so many different areas based on how you want to play. The cutscenes are awesome. The story is second to none overall. It's weird and confusing when it comes to the overall story. And even following this story, it's kind of weird. But Metal Gear Solid 2 is still just so good. So I have it in at number 14 on my list. Coming in at number 13, Star Fox 64. And does this game even count as an action adventure? I don't know. Shoot 'em up, action adventure, rail shooter, thingy, whatever. Star Fox 64 is awesome. It's got cool multiplayer that you can play with your friends. It's got a story that's really cool. It's got fully voicing even back on the N64 days with 1 megabyte of cartridge space for voices. No, it wasn't 1 megabyte, but still, you guys know what I mean on there. But to me, super replayable, very fun, different modes with the R-Wing. You have the Landmaster, you have the submarine that you can go through. It wasn't always the most fun levels, but it was still variety. You have the different paths that you can go through, bosses that you can fight, the bombs you can blow up on people, secret pathways to get the different bosses. I mean, it was just everything. This game was so replayable because of its arcade style high point score system. People would just play Star Fox 64 over and over and over and master everything about each of the routes, or even zigzag through or do different things. I know that's what I did when I played it. And once again, I need to talk about Star Fox because Star Fox is really awesome and we need it to come back. So Star Fox 64 with its smooth controls, great gameplay, voice acting, replay value, multiplayer, and I would say at the time, pretty advanced overall, everything when it comes down to presentation. That makes the number 13 on my list. Coming in at number 12, Kid Icarus Uprising. This game would probably be higher if Nintendo actually had a way to play it with dual analog sticks, solving one of the major issues with the game, and that is controls. But outside of that, everything else is awesome in this game. Kid Icarus Uprising has so many cool aspects with the game, from the weapon fusion system that lets you fuse all different types of cool weapons to the two-tier type of gameplay, starting out in the sky playing as like a shoot 'em up like a Star Fox, and then moving to the ground levels and playing like an action game. And I love that about this game. The boss battles are great. The replay value is there. The boss rushes, the different things that you can do in the game. The Sakurai touch, UI, feel, everything just has a super high quality level of polish and shine to it. And I would say that the replay value overall is some of the best in the Nintendo 3DS era, or just in gaming in the modern sense at least. On top of that, you have 3-on-3 multiplayer, which is also dead as well because the Nintendo 3DS is gone. So Nintendo, bring that back. But for right now, Kid Icarus Uprising, with everything that I talked about, makes it the number 12 on the list. Coming in at number 11, Devil May Cry 3 Special Edition. So we got to go with the special editions here. I think I'm sensing a little bit of a pattern here with Devil May Cry, or a little bit of a pattern here with Capcom with this, is that you wait for the special editions, because the special edition of this game fixed so many of the issues that were a problem with the original game and added a bunch of great content as well. So Devil May Cry 3 Special Edition, great weapons. I would say that the gameplay is the strongest suit, which of course Devil May Cry gameplay is always going to be the strongest suit, but I felt like the graphics, the music, the setting, the story pieces, and all that was awesome. I played this game multiple times, beat it multiple times. I love the orb leveling system in the game. Not too grindy, but then again, at the same time, if you want to power up and really overpower some of the enemies, you can do so. Love the different takes on weapons like the nunchucks and everything. So Devil May Cry 3 has everything that makes a great action adventure style of game, and I felt a little bit better about the game playing through it than I did with any other DMC game. And I think that it's still very much playable in today's day, as the game is also on the Nintendo Switch and people were playing it for the first time and felt that it was spectacular. It's absolutely aged well. So Devil May Cry 3 Special Edition makes the number 11 on my list. All right, guys, we are in the top 10. Let's go. Coming in at number 10, Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots. Man, I almost got fired over this job, guys. Let me just tell you something right now. That's how hype it was back in 2008. Locked myself in when I was working on campus and they needed me, and I'm like, bro, I'm playing Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots, and it was worth every single bit of it, because this game had you installing segments in between chapters and stuff. It was that much of a beast on the PlayStation 3. But overall, I would eat a sandwich during those times. But the gameplay itself was absolutely incredible. The graphics looked spectacular, but the story, the end of it all, the last parts leading into it, I don't know if I've ever felt a bigger emotional draw to a singular point in any other game outside of Mass Effect and Xenoblade games. This game really hits you right there in the feels. You felt the desperation and you felt the weight of what was happening when you played through this game and what was happening to Snake overall. I hated seeing him that old and everything, and I hated seeing what was happening to him, but it all kind of came together and you found out towards the end, and so many questions were answered on top of it just being an incredible experience overall. So I had to include Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots with its advanced stealth and action and gunplay systems. I mean, this game you can play in all sorts of types of ways. With everything that it brought to the table, had to make it to number 10 on the list. Coming in at number 9, Batman Arkham City, one of the best superhero games and probably the best superhero game of all time, in my opinion. Batman Arkham City did it all. Massive, huge city, check. Free-flowing gameplay, check. Plenty of upgrades, check. Awesome voice acting, check. Incredible graphics, check. Replay value, check. Online leaderboards for beat 'em up arenas, check. There were so many things in this game. When you plop down that 60, that 50, that 40, or whatever you paid for it and played Batman Arkham City, you got a complete game from start to finish, even before they released the DLC packs or anything like that. Batman Arkham City is awesome. It's still incredibly playable and better than most of the superhero games, if not all of the superhero games that come out in today's day. And that's why it makes it number 9 on my list. Coming in at number 8, God of War 2. Oh man, the old school God of War to me is just a sight to behold. It was such a visceral feeling of ripping people apart with Kratos and slashing them with those chaos blades. It just felt awesome, and God of War 2 had one of the biggest hypes and lead ups to what was going to happen, what they showed, what the PlayStation 2 was capable of at that point later into its life before the PS3 was coming out. The PS3 was out and everything. It was just awesome. It was super hype overall, but it looked great for a PlayStation 2 game. It ran super good. Frame rate was awesome. Controls were smooth and pinpoint as well. Level structure was great. And the game really made huge improvements in the puzzles and in the locations and the overall structure and flow of the game. It was a massive jump, in my opinion, from God of War 1 to God of War 2. And you saw that throughout the reviews and people talking about it. It's still to this day incredibly playable. That's why when the remastered versions came out, the HD versions, people were all over it, and myself included. I would love to see it on PlayStation 5 at some point, like a remake of God of War 1 and 2. I think that would be super cool because the games are just so good overall. And yes, Kratos doesn't have the character depth that I would say he has in the most modern games of God of War, but I think it makes up for it in just the sheer visceral nature of the air combos and gameplay and structure overall of the older God of War games. So God of War 2 makes it the number 8 on my list. Coming in at number 7, Bayonetta 1, the original, still one of the GOATs of action adventure games, of pure action games. And I wanted to put it on here just because Bayonetta, when you go back and play it and you see all of the things, you're thinking, okay, this is just going to be a female DMC. That's what some people were thinking. But it's much more than that. Hideki Kamiya and his team created something that is infinitely replayable with combat, style, skill, and grace. The original Bayonetta game is just so good. They did a phenomenal job with the inputs and with just the game structure. There are some annoying parts of it that hold it back just a bit, but overall with the wicked weave attacks and what you can do putting weapons on your hands and on your legs, I think that creates so many different combinations that just make it super fun to play through. I mean, you can get bazookas on your legs and kick people and explode it. It's just really dope. But that's just like the small part of it. That's just the tip of the iceberg. There are so many other combinations and secrets and different things to do in this game. It's a complete title front to back, and that's why Bayonetta makes it number 7 on my list. Coming in at number 6, Metroid Dread. I still remember when I first played this game, and I felt that this was Metroid 2D, old school, brought modern, and perfected. Just enough of the old school design to keep us happy, but then enough modern and new adjustments to make it far better than any of the previous Metroid games when it comes to a gameplay standpoint. You've got the counter that they added in Metroid Samus Returns. You've got the omnidirectional shooting, very easily shoot in any direction. You've got the smooth controls. You've got the wall flipping upgrades, everything, and the awesome hook or gimmick of the game of the enemies and getting through those certain sections in order to avoid the dread of getting absolutely destroyed in one hit if you're not careful. So Metroid Dread did everything that a great action adventure game needs to do. And let me tell you about that ending that I'm not going to spoil, but if you have not played this game, that ending is easily the best ending in Metroid history, and I cannot wait to see what they do next. So Metroid Dread makes it number 6 on my list. All right, guys, we are in the top 5. Coming in at number 5, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Now, I could go with so many different Legend of Zelda games here. Breath of the Wild, for example. We can go with Wind Waker. We can go with lots of stuff. Twilight Princess. But to me, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time deserves this 5 spot on the list because of what it did overall. The Z targeting system was a revolution for action adventure games, and pretty much every developer that wanted to make a competent action adventure sword or staff or melee combat style of single player game looked at The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time for inspiration. And still to this day, Z targeting, where you hold down a button, it locks in, you can strafe around, you can back dodge, you can forward roll, or you can do like a jumping attack. That Z targeting system is still used to this day in so many games, which makes The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, despite what some people might say, it makes it very much playable and aged well outside of the frame rate. But there is the 3DS version of the game, and of course you can play it in other ways that does bump things up. But overall, if you look at the game structure and how it is, Ocarina of Time is absolutely one of the best action adventure games of all time, and I don't really think it's even debatable here. It has earned it with its great gameplay, the Z targeting system, great graphics for the N64 overall when you look at it on that system, and even the music, the different locations you can go to, Epona, the side quests in the game. It was just awesome, and there was nothing else like it, not even close, at the time when it released on the N64 in the late 90s. So The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, I think, earns every single bit of its number 5 spot, and honestly could have been way higher. Next up at number 4, Astral Chain, one of my own personal favorites that I was teetering on. Should I put it here? It's a lot of RPG, it's a lot of action, it's a lot of adventure, it's kind of a lot of mix of everything. So I think it can really go into any of those lists, but Astral Chain is phenomenal. This game is underrated. More people need to check it out, and here's the reason why. You have these different legions in the game, and each legion is essentially a different party member on your team, or a different class per se. In addition to each of them having their own skill trees, on top of you being able to level up and do different things with your own character build as well, with all the customization, free DLC already put in there, because they didn't have to do DLC because they just put all of the game in there. Replay value, graphics looking as sharp and good and stylistic as they are on the Nintendo Switch. The only thing is that it's not 60 frames on Switch, 30, but the game still has fantastic input response timing overall, so it's not like you're gonna be like, oh man, this feels sluggish. Astral Chain is every bit as good as advertised. Story necessarily isn't the best, but a lot of action adventure games maybe don't have the best stories out there. It's about the gameplay, and to me, Astral Chain has just good enough story overall. A lot of cool set pieces and different things that happen that gets it to where it just elevates it as an incredible action adventure game. The music is also incredible. There's just so many awesome things about this game, and that's why Astral Chain makes it number 4 on the list. Coming in at number 3, Bayonetta 2, the pure action GOAT of video games out there. Adventure-wise, it's also really cool too. There's a lot of great aspects about it, certain things that you do in the game, but Bayonetta 2 to me still has the pure essence of a super finely crafted action game that doesn't make any type of compromises on letting players explore its combat depth and battle system. Very much like Bayonetta 1, very much like Astral Chain, Platinum Games knows how to get these intrinsic qualities within their high-end action games like Bayonetta that truly just set it apart. And Bayonetta 2 to me reached the apex. It reached the height when it came out back in 2014, and with its other ports like on the Nintendo Switch, and it's just so good overall. I love what they did with the combat in the game. The graphics look awesome as well. The music is surprisingly really good, and the story might be a bit confusing, but actually is really good if you really take your time to understand and watch a few lore videos and things like that, it makes quite a bit of sense when you replay the game again. It's got a multiplayer mode in there to where it connects to the single player mode. Halos that you get can be transferred to the single player mode. You can unlock new boss battles and different things from the single player to the multiplayer, and that's still going on even to this day on the Nintendo Switch. So it's just a lovely, finely crafted game with great characters, structure, gameplay, controls. Everything is pristine in Bayonetta 2, and that's why it makes the number 3 on my list. Coming in at number 2, Resident Evil 4 Remake. I wasn't sure, should this be survival horror? Should it be survival horror action adventure thingy? I mean, whatever. There's a lot of action and adventure in Resident Evil 4, so I'm putting it right here in at number 2. And I would say that the remake, while it didn't have the impact that the original Resident Evil 4 had on the gaming industry, it's still that Resident Evil 4 with a number of quality of life updates, with a rehauled shooting and mechanics system, with just so many better things. It's better than the original. Some people might not think so, but I definitely think that it's better than the original overall. You actually get more replay value if you're talking about what they included in the game in the base package. Overall, you get more stuff to do in the game, and you get extra side quests and different things that didn't happen in the original game if you want to take on those. The graphics just look great. The music, I didn't really notice too much, but Resident Evil to me isn't really known for its music. It's a lot of ambient and dark tones and sounds to fit the mood of the game, but I felt that anytime that music did pop on, it was pretty good. And the save theme from the original Resident Evil and in this one's really good too, so that's always awesome. But to me, the replay value is always what makes Resident Evil super cool. They put in and pack in a bunch of extra content you want to go through, beat it as fast as possible, play it on professional mode, get the infinite ammo, get the different types of outfits and costumes. All of that stuff just makes a superior gaming experience, along with the ability now at this point to move and shoot at the same time and to do different things that you couldn't do. So Resident Evil 4 Remake, however you want to put it, I don't really care. To me, the remake is just so lit. I played it straight through 30 plus hours and loved every second of it on the PlayStation 5, and I loved every bit of it when it came out originally on the GameCube. So Resident Evil 4 Remake makes the number 2 on my list. And coming in at number 1, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. And if you look at it, obviously you can put Breath of the Wild, you can put Tears of the Kingdom. To me, both of these games are kind of like right up there, but Tears of the Kingdom did something that truly shocked me even more than some of the aspects of with Breath of the Wild. Now, don't get me wrong, Breath of the Wild was the bigger impact overall. Absolutely, it was like, wow, the first time that we've seen in this type of world. But Tears of the Kingdom did so many crazy things with the mechanics and the physics and fleshed out all of the rough edges, or at least most of them, with Breath of the Wild. I love the Ultra Hand and the different types of puzzles that you can solve with that. And the shrines, to me, are considerably better in The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, along with the dungeons, quote unquote, in the game. While not as good as previous entries in the franchise, the dungeons were still a step above what we saw with The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I think that the different weapons and how you can fuse items together to create completely different things that have weird properties and all that. The Sky Islands and the Depths was a nice, huge, just massive expansion to the already huge Breath of the Wild, and all the new caves and areas that you could explore in the game just added a lot of depth to a map that was the same, but added so many different things that it felt new in many different places, along with just the story structure overall just being better. In my opinion, how you were able to unlock the memories was way better than just randomly running into them. You could actually go way high up above, then see the different hieroglyphics, then jump down. So it actually included it into the theme of the gameplay for the titles. And when it comes to the bosses in this game, these were some of the most ferocious and best battles that I've ever played in any game, and absolutely some of the best in any Zelda game. The amount of variety that you had to take out the enemies, the sequences, the music that accompanies it, it's just so well done, and easily one of the best things about The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. So The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, while not perfect, no game is, to me, is my favorite and best action adventure game of all time. So what are your top 25 action adventure games of all time? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. All right, peeps, that's gonna wrap it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you are someone new, click that notification bell, and check out our other top 25 all-time videos and more right here on screen, like this one on my top 25 RPGs of all time. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.